Andor continues to be the most unique, special, and uncompromisingly bleak and harrowing look at the Star Wars universe. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Baby Yoda as much as the next guy, but let's be real. Andor is cooking up something special. Andor's Season 2 episodes 4, 5, and 6 once again prove that Andor is such a rich, juicy, and horrifying look at Star Wars, and it just excites me and fills me with such sadness and dread. Unlike any Star Wars, I truly, absolutely love it so very, very much. It is just an absolute joy to watch in that it makes me very sad and angry. And it's just so captivating. All of the dialogue, all of the sets and the costumes, everything feels so real and so brilliantly brought to life. It's a true joy to behold, but it makes me sick to my stomach. And there's no better way to jump off this review than to discuss the sickest and most pathetic villain of all. And that, of course, is Ramsay Bolton's younger brother, everybody's favorite rent-a-cop / ticket inspector, Cyril. Disgusts me, absolutely disgusts me. I bloody hate Cyril. But I love to hate him. And I do feel like since the first 3 episodes of Season 1, Cyril has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat in terms of what I thought he was going to be. Like those first 3 episodes of Season 1, he was kind of being set up as the main antagonist to Andor. And I thought he was going to essentially be Andor, like the show's version, like their Darth Vader. Like he was going to be the main villain. And yet he kind of started taking a bit of a back seat, and you're kind of like, hey, he's just some pathetic nobody. And I never really knew where his arc was really truly going. But finally, in episodes 4, 5, and 6, he takes center stage. But I love how he takes center stage because he's still kind of just being manipulated. And even the people he thinks, I guess, love him are just using him because he's just a pathetic nobody. And they can use him in this one situation. And I found that incredibly interesting and juicy and kind of exciting just because, like, I don't know, he doesn't deserve much because he's so just bleh. Yeah, I was trying to think of a clever word, but really when I see him, I just go bleh. Tries to kind of weasel his way into their rebellion, and I thought it was really interesting to see him finally take center stage in this way. It was really interesting because at first, there's like, for 5 seconds, you're like, okay, he hates his mum, that's real, his mum sucks. Maybe in like the year that we've skipped between episodes 1, 2, and 3, and now he's kind of become a bit disenfranchised with the Empire. I did originally think, way back in Season 1, like somewhere in the middle part, is his arc going to be one of redemption? One of someone who's trying to please the Empire and try and be someone in the Empire, slowly realizing that the Empire doesn't care about him, and maybe his sense of like law and order is going to somehow kind of twist and become a rebel in some way? Is it going to be a redemption anti-hero arc? But then as the season progressed, it's like, no. This guy is a failed cop, but not going to be turned in any way. He is a ticket inspector. He is just a self-righteous, narcissistic little ant. You know, just like someone who's never going to be turned and convinced of the right thing. He just kind of sucks. And so it's so heartbreaking to have these episodes where the Gormans just don't know who Cyril is. And so they think, hey, he's a failed cop. Maybe we can convince him that the Empire sucks. But you can't. You can't turn Cyril because he's the worst kind of guy in the world. And so there's just this heartbreak of knowing more than the Gormans do as they think they're kind of enlisting someone to turn on the Empire. But really, he's just a double traitor spy situation. And yeah, it's just really fascinating and interesting. And he's not very good at being a spy, but they're pretty desperate. And the Gormans, like the rebels, they don't know what they're doing, which I found really funny how quickly Andor picks up that they are not ready for this. And he's like, I don't want any part of this. They're no good at this. They're no good. And they aren't, because they immediately believe Cyril and they bring him into their fold. And it's going to come back to bite them in the worst way possible. It's also just so juicy and nuanced and messy and awful that the Empire have essentially gone, all right, let's start a rebel insurgence. Let's get them going. And that's going to let us put our Empire foot down in the situation. And so everybody, the Gorman rebels, Cyril, everybody just feels like they're these pawns that the Empire, or specifically Miro, is just moving around so that they can get those juicy MacGuffin minerals to lather up on the Death Star. Sometimes in a story, it really doesn't work to know so much more than the heroes. You just feel like you're 2 steps ahead of them, and they can kind of feel really dumb, and it's just kind of frustrating. On this case, knowing so much more than the Gorman Rebels, or Andor, or Luthen, and being essentially kind of in the mindset of the Empire, and knowing what their plan for Gorman is so terrifying. It absolutely heightens and adds to the terror and kind of the inevitability of what is going to happen there, and just that they need the minerals there. There's a something MacGuffin mineral or whatever they need to coat the lasers of the Death Star or something. They need a thing on the planet, and they're gonna get it. They're going to do anything to get it, and to know how important Gorman is for the Empire just creates a really sickening sense to any of the rebellious stuff that they try and do. There's an amazing, exciting heist, but the whole time you're just like, it has this horrible feeling of almost pointlessness, where you just know this is not going to work the way that the Gorman locals want it to work. They need it to work. You just know in some way they're all going to fail, because the government do get the whatever MacGuffin mineral to coat on the Death Star, because the Death Star works in the end. And often a prequel can kind of, really like kind of suffers from the knowledge of the future. But in this case, I think it just really strengthened everything, and it just made it all feel so painfully like just pointless, I guess. But yeah, at the same time, it doesn't make the action any less tense. It kind of makes it exciting in a horrible way, where you just know something's going to go wrong, but the question is what? And whilst I did think that the heist was going to end with everybody dying, that kind of feels like that's Rogue One / Andor's go-to thing, where every 3 episodes builds up, you get to invest with all these characters, and then they kill everybody. Because, hey, nobody in this show is Luke Skywalker, so everybody dies. Another really interesting thing that this 3 episodes did is show the contrast of relationships in the show Andor. Andor and Bix truly love each other and will go to so many lengths to support each other, and it's a true love. On the other hand, you got Miro and Cyril, who have one of the weirdest, most bizarre relationships ever. It is so gross. It doesn't feel like any true, love is there, even though they are together. Miro is using Cyril. Cyril doesn't seem capable of love, yet I guess maybe he does love her in some way. It's just strange and gross, and it feels really kind of sterile and awful. Like when he rocks back up to their apartment and he goes to kiss her on the cheek, she almost flinches when he goes to touch her. And yet, there is that moments later, where she's like, turn off the lights. And you're like, oh damn. It's about to get real weird and real nasty. I'm talking real nasty. It's about as loving and sexy as remembering that Palpatine in Star Wars canon fucks. Everybody in Andor, particularly on the Rebel side, have really dealt with quite a lot of horrifying things, but maybe no one as much as Bix. Bix has gone through a lot, and she is dealing with some really intense and horrible PTSD, and now she's dealing with that with some kind of drug, presumably some kind of very awful and heavy drug, and it is terrifying. The moment when Luthen rocks up at the apartment, I'm like, oh man, we're about to see another murder for the greater good. But for now, Luthen decides that it's not worth taking care of Bix because he needs Andor on his side, and I guess he thinks it's probably not worth killing her because that's gonna, I guess, push Andor away from the rebellion and he'll just disappear into the galaxy. And so Andor comes back from Gorman and is able to enact a little bit of personal justice for Bix. And they go and they kill, or torture at first, and then kill the officer that tortured her from season 1. And whilst it is very brief and very quick, it is a surprisingly satisfying personal justice that is enacted, which I feel like in Andor is very few and far between. It doesn't feel like any of the rebels are going to get much of that kind of personal wins and those personal kind of justices. Feels like everybody's going to sacrifice everything, not get anything in return, and die Rogue One / Andor style. So it was really nice to get this little brief moment of, it's like a fist pump moment, which I feel like is maybe the last time any character is going to get a personal victory. Sure, there's going to be some more wins for the rebels, but it's always at a personal sacrifice. So it's just really, really nice to see. But I still have a bad feeling that Bix is not making out of this show alive. In fact, I kind of have a feeling that everybody outside of Andor and Mon Mothma who have to survive, they won't survive. Nobody's surviving this show. It just kind of feels kind of embedded and baked into kind of the idea of Andor. All of these rebels doing so much for the rebellion and none of them living to see the outcome of it post, I guess, the original trilogy. It's truly tragic, but it is kind of very interesting, and yeah, it's a sad show. It's exciting and interesting and cool. It's also very sad. On a positive, and when I mean positive, I mean more just I love seeing Mendo. Mendo rocks up once again as Krennic with another surprise yet welcome kind of extended cameo as he, not really extended cameo, I just didn't really think we'd see him back again, so it was really delightful that Krennic rocks up again and he has a kind of face-off showdown with Mon Mothma. That scene was really exciting and interesting. It really feels like Mon Mothma is just on the verge of cracking, on the verge of just exposing herself and being like, I'm sick of this empire, quite frankly. It's no good, and going full rebel. You just never know when that moment's coming. It's presumably going to happen in this final season. You just don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, why it's going to happen. And having this scene play out where so many other characters in the room could have been exposed. Luthen and his assistant at any moment could be exposed and killed. And the idea of them getting exposed and killed in front of Mon Mothma and her not being able to do anything because she's still trying to be undercover was really interesting, because I just kind of thought maybe this was going to be it. Because I feel like for all the things Luthen does, he has so many plates spinning, he's doing so much. The idea of it all unraveling due to this one bug in this one guy's house that hasn't really given them any good intel, it hasn't really provided anything for the rebellion, and for that to be their downfall, I feel like plays into everything that Andor is talking about and kind of discussing. And I feel like that really would have fit and worked in a really tragic way. But luckily for Luthen and for me, who loves Papa Skarsgård, he lives to fight and rebel another day. Although I feel like next week, or at the latest in 2 weeks' time, something horrible is going to happen to that man who has done so much for the rebellion, and it's just this horrible ticking time bomb. Everything in this show is just such an exciting and horrifying ticking time bomb where everything feels like it's about to collapse, and maybe they'll do something really good for the rebellion. I have a feeling it's going to be really interesting, bittersweet kind of end to the series where they do something big for the rebellion. It's all good and stuff, but everybody dies in the process, which feels completely in line with Rogue One/Andor Season 1. And since Luthen last week sacrificed Mon Mothma's childhood friend for the rebellion and for her security as the spy, it kind of feels like that would make the most sense, where he has to then sacrifice himself in the same way for Mon Mothma, because her as a figurehead of the rebellion is more important than him, who is secret and no one knows him. Like, it's not going to work if he's the figurehead of the rebellion once it comes out into the open. So I really do feel like, even though it didn't happen in this episode, it's going to happen in a similar way where he has to sacrifice himself to save Mon Mothma's security so she can escape and be the rebel leader that we know from Rogue One and original Star Wars. Overall, I absolutely love these episodes, and really the only negative of Andor Season 2 is that it is the final season, and as soon as an episode ends, or in this case the third episode ends of these little arcs, I am left with a sense of sadness, because the best Star Wars show is almost over, and truly that just makes me sad.